welcome back to the Page of Many Things. My name is Derek, Lycan101, and this video is another DM's tip video. Now, the subject of today's video is one that has kind of been on the back burner for a while. It was requested of me a while back by one of my subscribers. It kind of disappeared for a while. I don't know what happened to my little sticky note that I had for it, but while hunting through my inbox, I found it again. So I will do this video right now and ensure that it gets posted and put up. The subject for this DM's tip is quite simply DM pitfalls or role-playing pitfalls that I have run into while DMing and ways to combat them. So I'm going to talk about 4 major issues that I have run into over the course of my experience as a DM and a role player. And those 4 are player focus, DM distraction, burnout, whether that be player or DM burnout, and player absence. So, let's get right into this, the brass tacks, if you will, of player focus. While sitting behind the screen as a DM, you tend to notice after maybe 3 hours of gaming, you start to get into your groove, but you're just kind of passing that actual groove part, like where you've gotten into, everyone's down at the table, everyone's ready to game, and we're all set and we're all hyped for the adventure. But then this is a little bit beyond that point where that first long combat comes up, or that one player's personal story is in need of development, so they have their personal quest line, or 2 players are arguing, whatever the example is. So certain players begin to lose focus, whether that's the pulling out of the old cell phone and texting, or if you allow laptops or iPads, tablets at your table, and you see somebody playing a little iPad game or something, and you can just tell they're kind of losing focus a little bit. How can you combat this as a DM? Well, what I like to do is if I see players losing focus, I like to hone in on one specific player who is still attentive and listening, and I will do one of 2 things with that player. I will provide them with a bit of story, or I'll say something to them and it could be really important, but then only they will know because the rest of the party is no longer paying attention. And it'll be a little bit of information that they can use later on in terms of the story that other players will be like, well, wait, how did you know to do that? Oh, well, the DM said that earlier and you just weren't listening. If you had been listening too, you would have heard it. It's kind of like a pat on the back for the person listening, and kind of you should be paying better attention to the other people. That's kind of more of a rough-handed approach. Another thing that I like to do is if it's not combat, and I'll talk about a combat approach in a second. Another non-combat approach is to, behind the screen, just have a blank sheet of paper, write down some little message or something, some kind of impending doom or whatever kind of message you want, fold it up and slide it to one of the players. It can be one of the players not paying attention, and oftentimes that's when it works best. You slide this little note to one of the players not paying attention. It can say anything. It could say, your character has a sudden vision of his impending doom, or the death of a fellow party member, and then just some little hook, some little plot hook or story point that will just immediately draw them back and say, whoa, what was I missing? I need to pay attention now. Something bad is about to happen, or just something is about to happen. Or it could be the player suddenly struck by lightning and use the wrath of the DM to get player focus back. Now those are all outside of combat examples. Now here's an example for inside combat. If you're in combat and it's dragging on and on, high level character combat can drag on and on. A way to get back player focus while in combat is to spice up your descriptions. Pretend like you have a sword in hand and thrust and act out the motions of the DM. So your giant over-dramatic actions and waving your arms crazily around the screen or around the table and just or getting up from the table suddenly. Just your actions will suddenly bring back their attention. All the players that were typing away on the computers or the tablet or on the cell phones will go, what? What's happening? What is he doing? And then it gets their attention and it brings them back. You might look like a goofus or a goofball for a second. A goofus. I just made up a new word, guys. Goofus. Doofus and goofy. There we go. So you'll look like a goofus and just be up there just flailing your arms. But that's okay because you're the DM. you don't get to look like a goofus because you're the one in control, right? So anyway, another example of inside combat that you can do is suddenly up the ante. Bring in another monster from outside the room, or uh, just add in a new monster to the scenario to suddenly say, oh hey, guess what? There's a new challenge. Maybe that mage is just constantly sitting in the background like, ugh, magic missile this turn. Oh hey, it's my turn again. What am I gonna do? Oh, magic missile. Oh hey, what am I gonna do this turn? Fireball spell. And I'm just so bored because I'm just gonna stand in the background and never get hurt. Well, throw in that new minion or that new monster that suddenly sneaks around the back and just attacks and stabs the wizard in the back, and he didn't notice because he was so preoccupied with, oh, I'm so bored casting my spells, that he doesn't even bother to be actively perceiving his surroundings. So don't even allow a perception check and just, pow, hit him, and suddenly they're like, whoa, 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 where'd that come from? Totally brings player focus back. Now, the next idea I want to talk about is probably the single most important issue I'm going to talk about today because it is the one that I suffer from constantly. And that is DM idea distraction. I don't know how many times I'm sitting behind the screen running combat, running my campaigns, and suddenly this little idea, this little nugget, this little gem will just like creep in from nowhere and just plant itself inside my cerebellum, and it won't leave, and I cannot focus on the story at hand. And there's just something. It's, maybe it's a new item that I just created in my head, or maybe it's a new campaign idea, or a new enemy type, or anything. It can literally be anything. Maybe I just created a new god. I don't know. It's in there, and now it won't leave me alone. What am I going to do? I've totally lost focus on everything that's going on at this table right now because this idea is in here, and I don't know what to do about it. Simply put, here's one of the ways I deal with it. If it's not something large and grand scale, like a whole new campaign, and it's something smaller, maybe it's a new deity or, like I said, an enemy type or something, and you're thinking, oh, I'll use that later. It doesn't really, it's not appropriate for this campaign. I'll file it away and I'll use it later. No, use it now. Implement it into your campaign. You know why? Simple. Because the idea is in your head, and you're just filing it away. And every time you're sitting at the table, you're gonna go, God, I really wish I was using that enemy, or oh, I really want to throw in that new god, or wouldn't that be cool if? If you're saying, wouldn't it be cool if, throw it in. It is definitely going to be worth adding it. And then once it's in the campaign, you can see how it's going, what problems you have with it, ways to further develop it, and who knows, maybe everybody is going to love it at the table, and it'll just create this whole new set of awesomeness. So that's the tip I provide to you with that, is if you're distracted by a new idea or some other little nugget or gem, throw it in there, because it's like a good example that I always like to use as an analogy is those people that go out and they buy those fine china plates, like the ones that are really nice and decorative, and they hang them up on the wall and they put them in the nice chests, or what are those things called? The little, you know what I'm talking about, those little like armoire things in the dinettes, and where you see all the little plates and they're all set up nice and neat, but you never ever eat on those plates because they're just there. Oh, that's pretty. Can I use them? No. That's what those things are. Those plates are ideas. Those are those beautiful gems just waiting to be plucked and pulled down and set on the table and eaten off of. Just so my analogy is growing a little out of proportion here. So you get the idea. The plate is there for the idea. When you put it on the table, everybody can look at it and use it and enjoy its amazingness. So that's kind of a egregious analogy, but anyway, that's how I handle DM distraction, idea distraction. Now we're going to talk about burnout, and this can be DM burnout or this can be player burnout. Just because you're a player doesn't mean you can't get burnout. DM burnout or player burnout often occurs because there's some aspect either within your character, within the campaign, or within how often you meet, or any other number of reasons can come up for a burnout. What happens is you're simply pushing too hard with something or not enjoying something enough, and it just no longer holds your interest. You see this a lot. not, I wouldn't say it's not so much as burnout as it is just dedication, but we can use that as a burnout example, is in the video game industry, is people become so engrossed with a singular story, but then they just, as soon as the next big thing comes out, they immediately just toss this one away and grab the new one. For example, I know Diablo 3, great game, great way to just, suck away hours of your life, right? Uh, but as soon as the next big hit comes out, Diablo 3 just falls back to the wayside. Yes, there's still a dedicated player base, but people have just let it go. And that's an example of burnout. They're like, oh, I just dug through it all so quick. Now what? They used too much effort, and they did too much too fast. So it's just like they didn't enjoy the experience as much as they could have if they'd slowed down and paced themselves. The opposite is true when you're not enjoying it enough. So you can get burnout if, in terms as a player, your character isn't getting the spotlight enough, or you feel underpowered compared to the other characters, where you run up and you swing your sword or use your magic or use your arrows or whatever it is, but you're just not connecting as much, and you're not feeling as much love around the table, from whether from the DM or from other players. Maybe it's the other players, and you're not a good unit, good group together. So there's a number of issues that can come up that just that provide for DM burnout or player burnout. The easiest way to combat both of these issues is to sit down together and talk about it. And that is whether as a player, talk to your DM, talk to your group. As the DM, talk to your players. Say, as a DM, hey guys, I'm getting a little bored with this. I know you guys are probably having fun, but I need to take a step back and maybe let's take a couple weeks off, or not really meet. Or does somebody else want to run a campaign for a while, and then we can come back to this and just talk it out. As a player, talk to the DMing group, like I said, and say, hey guys, I'm not really feeling this character. Do you have any suggestions on spicing it up? Or I'm feeling a little out of place or underpowered compared to you guys, and I'm just not enjoying this enough to really get the fullest out of this character. What can we do about that? In a good group, and oftentimes you're playing this game with friends, so you guys will work together and work this out. So the other thing that you can do with burnout is just step back. It may be difficult, but maybe take a couple weeks, maybe take a month off of gaming and just step back and just breathe, relax. D&D will still be there when you come back. It'll be right there waiting for you. So that's how I can my suggestion to you on how to handle burnout. Last, we're going to talk about player absence, and we're already approaching the 13-minute mark, so thanks for guys for sticking around. And player absence. As a DM, player absence can get really, really annoying, because you've got all these different plot hooks and story hooks, and maybe you've got some centered around certain characters that you're like, ooh, I hope they show up today because I really, really want to do this, or this part is crucial without or with them here, and if without it, I don't know if we can do this. So not only are you, player absence mess up your story, but they mess up the group dynamic. Ways to combat this is you can provide a punishment for missing players. Now sometimes players are going to miss sessions. Sickness, jobs, real life, anything can come up. Family issues, anything can come up. If it's one of those issues where players are away and and they've talked to you ahead of time, there's no need for a punishment, and you have time to work out ahead what you're going to do for your campaign and your adventures. Now, if a player's just, like, oh, yeah, I'll be there. 2 thumbs up for Friday, right? We're going to be there. We're going to play D&D. You, me, D&D together. And then they don't show up. You've been planning on them showing up, and they don't. Now we have an issue. The most common way I've seen to punish player absence is don't give them experience. I've seen some DMs, I do it sometimes myself, is I will keep a tally sheet of all the experience that was given during that particular session, and then when the player comes back, give them that experience so they don't fall too far behind. So you can give them no experience, you can give them half the amount of experience. And then when they ask, well, why did I only get half? You weren't here, you weren't actively participating. Your character may have been, away from keyboard, if you will, use a World of Warcraft term, computer term. just hanging out in the background. Or that can be that they stayed in town or were at the campsite and they just didn't get involved. You slept the whole time, or something like that. Another form of punishment that I have seen that is oftentimes works well is to not punish them through experience, but to punish them through just the simple fact that you said, okay, you don't want to show up. Well, I took over your character, and this is what happened. And that can some people are going to instantly cry foul. Derek, you can't do that. You can't mess with a person's character like that. I'm not saying just destroy all their loot or make them go jump off a cliff and die. I'm saying have some fun as a DM if a player's not there. That person's character is still there, right? Maybe they stayed at camp, but maybe in the middle of the night they sleepwalked away and are now under the control of a dark dragon who is now going to sequester this person away and then take over their character's mind and then have evil minions inhabit their body and then replace him with a doppelganger in the party. And there's an infinite number of possibilities. So when that person finally does come back, you have an aside and say, just between you and them, and say, hey, you weren't here last time, so here's what happened to your character. And it may sound cruel, but as a DM, you get to do that. You have the ultimate authority and control over what happens in your game. Just because a player isn't there doesn't mean stuff doesn't happen to them. So I have heard of lots of DMs do this. I know the high and mighty dungeon master of them all, or of that upper echelon tier, Chris Perkins over at Wizards of the Coast, does this a lot, and he has seen it work, and I've seen it work, and it's a really, really useful way to make sure that players come back, because they say, D&D's tonight. I don't know if I want to go. For whatever reason. Maybe they're just like, I'm not going to go. But then they pause. If I don't go, what's the DM going to do to my character? The last time I wasn't there, I got taken away by an evil dragon and was trying to be replaced by a doppelganger. If that continues, what if the doppelganger does come back? Then the party will never know that I'm not me. Then I'll have to roleplay a doppelganger, and I'll have to be an evil person, and I might wind up having to kill the entire party, whom I've grown to trust over the last X amount of sessions. I'm going to D&D tonight. Simple as that. Just, and if you don't, that was all just talking about punishment. If you don't want to punish player absence and, someone's just not coming, just sit down and talk with them and be like, hey, why aren't you coming to D&D? Are you not having fun? Do you not want to come back? If you don't, that's fine. I just need to know so I can write you out of the story. Or I can just sideline you, if that's what you want to do. Those are a variety of different options that you can use to handle player absence. So, I've been talking about pitfalls in DMing and how to combat them. Derek, Lycan 101, a long-winded video. Hopefully everybody stuck around. Lots of sprinkles of DM goodness in this one. So, I wanted to collect them all together and put out this longer video for you guys, my subscribers. So, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoy this video and find some bit of goodness that you can use in your campaigns. I've been Derek, Lycan 101, and this is the Page of Many Things. I'll see you next time.